30 hours ago, Yoona Lee and I were prisoners in North Korea. We feared that at any moment we could be sent to a hard labor camp. And then suddenly we were told that we were going to a meeting. We were taken to a location, and when we walked in through the doors, we saw standing before us President Bill Clinton. We were shocked, but we knew instantly in our hearts that the nightmare of our lives was finally coming to an end.
Welcome to Ring of Fire. I'm David Bender, in for Bobby Kennedy and Mike Papantonio this week. And, of course, that was journalist Laura Ling. She and her colleague Yoona Lee were dramatically freed this week by the North Koreans after a visit by former President Bill Clinton. It's an extraordinary moment, and if you were watching, you saw that the symbolism of the two of them getting off the plane, President Clinton there, embraced by their boss, the head of Current TV, former Vice President Al Gore. So much happened in this extraordinary sequence of events, and we're going to be talking about it on the program today. We're doing something very different here on Ring of Fire today. We're taking your calls. It's Ring of Fire Live for the very first time, 866-303-2270. We're going to be taking your calls throughout the program. We're going to be talking as well with author Jeff Sharlet will be here. Of course, he's the author of The Family. And if you've been following this, Rachel Maddow and so many others have been covering it. It was on Bill Maher recently. An extraordinary story of this 70-year-old pseudo-religious, very secretive organization known as The Family. It got a lot of light shed on it with John Ensign, with Mark Sanford. We're going to be talking with Jeff Sharlet later in the program. Also, Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America Executive Director and Founder Paul Rieckhoff is going to join us. Paul Rieckhoff, of course, was able to participate in a great victory. So many people worked on something that actually came into effect this past week, the new GI Bill, the first new benefits for returning veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan, a major, major victory that will now be implemented. Paul Rieckhoff will be talking about that with us later in the program. But first up, we're going to talk about the news of the week, as we always do here at Ring of Fire. Some of, actually, in this case, perhaps not the underreported stories, but the reported stories with a different perspective. We're going to try and see some of the stories that you've been following this week, including the story of the free journalists, but possibly in a way that the mainstream media isn't following it carefully. And we've experienced that so often, that stories you think you know, you have to dig a little deeper, and we do that here at Ring of Fire. Joining us now, as he often does, is Matt Filipowicz. Matt Filipowicz is the founder of Headzup.tv. He is a cogent and always caustic analyst. Matt, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, David, and thank you for cogent and caustic.
Well, say it three times fast and you'll be a blithering idiot. But that not you, that would be me. This was an amazing thing to watch, what happened with Laura Ling and Yoona Lee. What's your take on it?
Well, it was amazing. It would appear that Bubba has got his groove back. The big dog. It was an amazing moment.
The big dog goes to North Korea, and I'm not sure. I know in China actually dog is a delicacy.
Here dog ate man.
Dog ate man. But you know what? Here's where I want to go, Matt. I want to understand not only the dynamics of what happened. It is wonderful. These two women who were, as I say, reporting for Current TV. They were in North Korea. They were plainly not spies. They had been sentenced to 12 years of hard labor. It's absolutely a travesty.
In prison for the last 5 months and then facing 12 years of hard labor at a North Korean prison camp.
Absurd. And so stipulated that this was, not even close to justice. There was no case against these women. It was wonderful to see what happened. What I'm interested in, and where I think if not the coverage, at least the analysis is important, is what does this mean for the Obama administration? Already, of course, the right wing, people like John Bolton, others attacking the president for allowing this deal to be made, essentially dealing with terrorists. But is there also a danger, Matt, of this focus on the big dog is back, on Bubba's great victory, does this somehow make President Obama seem weaker in his own country, that it's a former president who had to go and do this?
I don't think so. I for the second point, let's do the first one. The second one first.
Second one first. Take it whatever order you want.
I really don't think so. I mean, one of the angles that was kind of disappointing. Let's start with the disappointing and go back to the good here. One of the angles that was on there, not just over Obama, was that the idea that Bill Clinton not just upstaged Obama, but upstaged Hillary.
Oh, right.
And again, like, as if using Bill Clinton to secure the release of these two American citizens is a sign of weakness on Hillary's part, like a sign of Hillary being ineffective. But it's so ridiculously sexist and so ridiculously untrue. I mean, Hillary and President Obama using every tool that we have at our disposal as Secretary of State, as President, to free American prisoners is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Let's see, sexist and untrue. It sounds like a right-wing meme to me.
Exactly, and I have to tell you something, David. I'm very a liberal person, and someone who gets a little frustrated lately with Obama and some of the pace of things. I got to say, again, this is one of those night and day moments that illustrate the difference between Republicans and Democrats and just administrations, the difference between having competent people in charge of the government who aren't just insane warmongers. And you think like getting these two American citizens home safe and alive would be something we'd all want to celebrate, and most of us sane people did, except for like the ex-US UN ambassador
John Bolton,
Bush, half man, half walrus, John Bolton. I mean,
yes, cuckoo cachoo. And again, what Bolton said this week, and I've got the quote here. Despite decades of bipartisan U.S. rhetoric about not negotiating with terrorists for the release of hostages, it seems that the Obama administration not only chose to negotiate, but to send a former president to do so. Well, let's think about this for a moment. Can you imagine, both as current, were he the incumbent, George W. Bush taking any action? Obviously,
they would still be there.
They'd still be there. They'd be there for the next 12 years, and he wouldn't have had the ability, and I think you're absolutely right, Matt. It is a sign of strength on both President Obama's part and Secretary of State Clinton's part to say, we're going to use all our assets, and one of them is plainly Bill Clinton.
No, exactly.
And that strength is the ability to act decisively, but not to bluster, not to do the sorts of things, axis of evil that got us into the situation we've seen for the last 8 years. That's the breakthrough.
Oh, totally. And again, as someone who's very liberal, I'm not even, I'll be honest, I'm not even a giant fan of the Clintons because they're centrist. But that being said, I think Hillary Clinton is an amazing Secretary of State. As someone who has to go and repair all the damage to our international reputation that the Bush administration has done, I can't think of a better person to do it than Hillary Clinton.
And she's doing it with only one elbow.
This is true. She's one hand wrapped around her body there. The thing is, I think Bolton and the neocons, they're mad because every time you accomplish something without bombing another country or at least threatening to bomb another country, it's a miserable failure in the eyes of the neocons. It's their whole entire foreign policy is being repudiated in front of their very eyes. It's like, oh wait, we can actually get things done without murdering civilians, without puffing up our chest like maniacs.
Well, we're going to talk about what's happening to the neocons and to the right wing because plainly, and it's happening not just internationally, it's happening domestically and it's happening around healthcare. Their heads are exploding, Matt, and it is not pretty because when something that has nothing in it explodes, it's just all shrapnel. There's nothing left. It's really.
The vacuum makes it even more powerful.
The vacuum explosion is very powerful. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be playing some clips of some of the worst of it, and also the best radio, coming right up here on Ring of Fire. I'm David Bender, in for Bobby Kennedy and Mike Papantonio. We'll have more with Matt Filipowicz in just a moment. Give us a call, 866-303-2270.
The Obama healthcare logo is damn close to a Nazi swastika logo. There are far more similarities between Nancy Pelosi and Adolf Hitler than between these people showing up at town halls to protest a Hitler-like policy that's being heralded by a Hitler-like logo. Oh, another similarity. Obama is asking citizens to rat each other out like Hitler did.
Welcome back to Ring of Fire. That was comedian Rush Limbaugh. And, not a very talented one, to be truthful, because you know what? He doesn't get that he's a joke. Someone who is a very talented comedian is Matt Filipowicz. He's the founder of Headzup.tv. He's also performing with the comedy group The Accountants of Homeland Security. You can see them every Saturday night at Chicago's Conservatory Theater. Matt, there's nothing really funny about Rush Limbaugh. Isn't he like fire in a crowded theater now? Isn't this inciting violence? That's not funny, is it?
No, it's not funny at all. It's actually really, really dangerous. And now, again, we have all this stuff coming around. I mean, in the comedy world, we call comedians like that hack comics because they're really untalented. And now, and there's nothing wrong, like, with citizens going to town hall meetings that are going on everywhere and voicing their opinions. I mean, that's what town halls are there for. It's kind of the democratic process. But unfortunately, thanks to these right-wing maniacs who are stoking the flames of hatred, that's not actually what's going on. We have these well-organized campaigns by these deep-pocketed fake grassroots groups called like AstroTurf groups. They're getting folks to come out and not just like voice their opinions there. They're there to like disrupt and drown out any and all actual conversation that would happen there. I mean, Republicans, they're not good at anything like, say, governing, David, but it turns out they're really good at organizing mobs of angry white people.
Well, Sean Hannity has actually posted on his website, say, join the mob. They're not even trying to conceal it. Let's call it what it is, Matt. This goes right back to what happened in Florida, which is how we got into this mess to begin with, because the Republicans organized mob rule in Florida to shut down the democratic process to install George W. Bush as president. The same mentality, the same mob mindset. It has nothing to do with, as you said, democratic debate. That's the furthest thing from their minds. They want no part of that because they lose every time they debate on the issues. This is simply about, AstroTurf is a kind way of putting it. This is about what you actually put on real grass to make it grow. Right. And I would use the word for it, but there still is an FCC. We're talking with Matt Filipowicz, and we are going to be taking your calls here at Ring of Fire, 866-303-2270. So, Matt, it is interesting to me that we're watching this play out now. I think, however, the tide is turning. My sense of it, and I wonder if it's yours as well, is that people are onto this now. They're actually seeing, because you get journalists, there are a few of them left, who actually start interviewing these people who claim, I'm just a citizen, I'm a mother. And I watched one of them on Rachel's show last night. She had a clip of the local reporter, I think it might have been in Wisconsin. It was. And this woman said, I'm not a member of the Republican Party.
I'm just a mom from a few blocks away.
I'm just a mom from a few blocks away. They go to her website.
Exactly.
And so what's happening is finally, because it's playing out in, sort of such a public way, in a different way than Florida did in 2000, the turnaround is that they now can't conceal the fact that this is astroturfing. This is all created by large interests that are, if not paying people, inciting people and giving them a script to read from. Interrupt your member of Congress. Don't let him or her talk. They have that now in the media.
That's true. It's in the media, and the thing is, it's coming from these AstroTurf groups like Freedom Works, like Americans for Prosperity. I think other ones, Conservatives for Patients' Rights. These groups that are like front groups for the insurance industry. I mean, Americans for Prosperity is actually funded by Exxon, actually. but here you have all these crazy points that are coming.
The people who gave you sludge.
Exactly. That are coming from, but they're coming from like you see like pictures of Obama comparing him to Hitler. And again, it's coming right from Rush Limbaugh on his radio show. You have a Republican congressman, Todd Akin from Missouri. He's at a town hall, and he jokes about Democrats getting lynched. But then in Maryland, outside an office, protesters lynch in effigy the likeness of Democratic Congressman Frank Cradaville, I think his name is. They actually they're lynching a picture of him out there. I mean, for God's sake, Sarah Palin is saying that Obama is going to have, quote, a death panel to decide whether to kill her Down syndrome baby and her parents.
Yeah.
I mean, another thing, I'll tell you a little quick thing about Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck earlier this week was begging his audience not to turn violent, which is good. He was like, please don't kill anybody. But then literally the very next day, he makes a joke about poisoning Nancy Pelosi. Yeah.
Again, that would be a hack comic. And let's be clear, this is the same guy that called President Obama a racist.
Exactly.
Glenn Beck is now saying, but hey, don't get mad, don't get violent. I don't want it to seem like I'm inciting anybody. Look over there. It's outrageous. Matt, we've only got a minute left, and as much as, and we are going to be talking about this. A lot of people online who want to talk about what's going on out there in these town halls. 866-303-2270. But I would be remiss. You're from Chicago. A native son, actually someone who famously made movies set in Chicago, John Hughes, passed this past week, quite suddenly actually, and he was a cultural totem for so many people. There's a moment that always resonates for me. Let's play that clip.
Bueller.
That would be that moment. Ben Stein, of all people.
Exactly.
Saying Bueller.
Who would have thought he would have turned out to be such a horrible human being after being so funny in that movie?
Well, that was his high point. Let's be clear. But John Hughes really was someone special for a lot of folks.
As someone who's a child of the 80s, I mean, his movies really affected me and my generation. I mean, you have like you just played Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You had The Breakfast Club, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Right. 16 Candles. Pretty in Pink.
He gave us Clark Griswold, for crying out loud, with all the National Lampoon's vacation movies.
Well, we miss him, and we are better for his presence, for his having been here, and we're always better for you, Matt Filipowicz. Thanks for joining us on Ring of Fire. We're going to take a break. When we come back, your calls, 866-303-2270.